Top of the morning to you. Welcome to the Sweat. Welcome back, Jessie Coffield.
Yay!
How was Miami? What was your favorite part?
Just hanging with the boys, just like wolf pack, just like best friends forever. Yeah.
The beach, dudes in Speedos.
And, seeing everybody who played and won in Fantasy Football World Championship, that was pretty cool.
Lots of people who have more money today than they did not have before Sunday.
That's true.
Okay, so I'm Emerson, Lotzia, but you don't care about that. Our countdown to Christmas continues. You may care about this. 5 days and 14 hours.
Woo! Santa!
Let's go!
I know him! But first things first, this show with all the sports betting and fantasy advice you're looking for. We got NHL, NFL, and college football, but we'll start in the association.
Yes, we will. A 4-game slate in the NBA. A 2-man NBA panel. DraftKings contributor, Gary and Thorne, and RotoWire's Alex Barutha. Tell us who you're building your lineups around at each position, starting at center. Gary.
Yeah, center's not exactly the best position tonight on a small slate. There's not a ton of options to choose from, especially considering we don't quite know the status of Anthony Davis. Seems like he's going to play, and that obviously helps things out a little bit. But even if he does, I think Clint Capella's in a really nice spot. I think it's an obvious spot to attack. This game between the Rockets and the Clippers has easily the highest projected total of this 4-game slate. Over the last 10 games, we've got the number 1 team in pace in the Clippers against the number 7 team in pace in the Rockets. And if you want to go for the whole season, I think it's 2nd in the Rockets and 6th for the Clippers. So it's going to be up-tempo. It's going to be high scoring. Capella is really just one of the best floor plays we have. And that's not to dispute his ceiling, which he obviously does also possess. But this is someone who's got 11 double-doubles in his last 12 games. I just think on a slate where center is a little bit of a crapshoot, he's the safest option, and I don't mind filling him into my lineups.
All right, Alex, so what's your strategy when it comes to center?
I like Rudy Gobert. I think, against Atlanta, they don't have any trustworthy centers. Between Alex Len, Damian Jones, Bruno Fernando, it's hard to tell who exactly they like there. And they allowed the third most DraftKings points to centers, including the second most blocks, which is great for Gobert. He's been better lately, averaging 43 DraftKings points over the past 7 games. He averages 42 DraftKings points on the road. I just think he has the size and the experience to take advantage of this Atlanta front court, which really just isn't that good. And the team as a whole, I think, is really just going to struggle against Utah.
All right, how about at forward, Alex? Who are you building around?
I like Lamarcus Aldridge against Brooklyn. Brooklyn's an average defensive team, but the one thing they do allow is a ton of mid-range shots. And if there's one thing Lamarcus Aldridge likes, it's mid-range shots. He's been playing well too, 41 DraftKings points over the past 8 games. Plays well at home, 38 DraftKings points per game there. I just think when you have a defense that gives up a shot that he likes so much, you can't always guarantee he's going to make them, but he's certainly going to take them. And at 7,300, I feel like you have a pretty nice floor with him, and there's a really good chance you get 5 or 6 times value.
Gary, and who are you looking at forward?
I just think Paul George presents a really nice floor tonight. I know there's obviously some questions about his ability to play and shine into DFS capacity when he has to share the court with Kawhi, but you just look at in a similarly high-paced game the last time the Clippers took the court against Phoenix, he only needed 24 minutes to score 35 DraftKings points. And again, that's not going to be enough to get you to value tonight, but this is someone who for the season is averaging 1.4 DraftKings points per minute played. So you'd have to think if there's going to be a night where Doc Rivers maybe has to extend the minutes of his main pieces a little bit more than usual, it would be against this Rockets team. And really, it's kind of strange how the Clippers' schedule has played out so far. They haven't actually had to play a lot of top-flight Western Conference opponents yet, even really Eastern Conference opponents. You could argue that the last time they had to play an elite team was against Houston back in late November. So I know there's some concerns about how much they're actually willing to push George, but I think we saw in games where Kawhi wasn't playing, he's definitely capable of playing almost 40 minutes a night. And if there's going to be a script that we see Kawhi, that we see George get into that 35, 36-minute range, I think it's going to be tonight in a game against a team like Houston.
All right, if you could pick one guard to build around, who would it be, Garion?
I think I'm going to go with Mike Conley. Kind of backing up what Alex was saying with Atlanta, there's just not a whole lot to fear with this team in terms of their defensive prowess. And they're sort of like Washington Jr. in the sense that they have a terrible defensive rating and a very high pace. They're not quite Washington, but they're pretty close. Across the last 15 games, they have the third worst defensive rating in basketball and the sixth highest pace. So really, that's just great news for anyone who happens to be taking them on. And you've still got a Jazz team that will be without Mike Conley. And even if you want to look into the one game that Donovan Mitchell had to play with Mike Conley, the 17 minutes Conley was able to get on the court before re-aggravating that hamstring injury, he still had a 30% usage rate. He still took 23 field goal attempts. I think the only concern you might have with a guy like Mitchell is, does this game get out of hand a little too fast? But there's really been nothing about the Jazz to me that would suggest you have to worry about a blowout at this point. So I think he's in a really good spot in that $8,000 range.
Who do you like, Alex?
Garion and I are in agreement here. I also like Donovan Mitchell at 8,000. I don't love the price point. I think he has a nice floor, though. With Conley out, not a ton of extra usage funnels to Mitchell, but the kind of construction of the team changes in a way that's going to allow Mitchell to handle the ball more. Talked about Atlanta's bad defense already. Donovan Mitchell averaging the 40 DraftKings points across the past 4 games, 39 DraftKings points on the road. He's just been really good lately and on the season as a whole, and Conley being out only helps that.
All right, Alex, now we need a value play from you.
I'm going to turn to the Clippers-Rockets game. I'm going with Patrick Beverley at 4,400. Going up against Houston, this is the type of game Beverley gets up for. It's the type of game they need his energy and hustle and defensive effort for. And Gary made a great point earlier with these guys. They could see 35, 40 minutes or just more minutes than they're normally used to because the game is so high octane. And Beverley has, his floor can be a little low, but this month, pretty solid, 24 DraftKings points on average. He plays well at home. He has a ceiling of like 35 to 40 DraftKings points if he hits his threes and plays good defense. So it's not insane value, but I do like the script of the game and what he brings to the table at 4,400.
Gary, I need some value from you.
It's funny because initially I wanted to go with Patrick Beverley because it just seems like the exact type of spot Beverley would get up for. My argument is that he gets up too much. This is like 108% Patrick Beverley because not only is it his former team, it's Russell Westbrook, and we know that whole deal. And we've kind of seen that so far this season. They've played the Rockets twice, and Beverley is fouled out in about 20 minutes in both of these games. And I kind of fear that a little bit. I think you can definitely roster Beverley because if he's able to stay on the court, I 100% agree with Alex. I just think this is a environment where fantasy points are going to be plentiful. So he's someone who could get up into that 30, 35-minute range. But I kind of like Lou Williams. I know he's not a super value play, but it's rare to see Lou below $6,000 on this slate. He's 5'9". And in the 2 games the Clippers have played the Rockets, because Pat Beverley is fouled out so quickly, Williams has played a ton of minutes. And the great thing about Williams, too, you don't need Beverley to foul out for Williams to reach value. I mean, he's still one of the higher ceiling players on this slate. So I think he really does kind of walk the line of best of both worlds at a relatively cheap price for Lou.
Well, we are going to wrap up the show with you two talking sportsbook plays on tonight's slate. But for now, here's Panel B on Saturday's slate of NFL games.
This is going to be one of the tougher 3-game slates.
In ways there's a lot to choose from. But I thought it was interesting, because when you play these slates, it's always like there's good running backs to pay up for. Or who are you even going to choose from between all these running backs? Da-da-da-da-da.
Yep.
This slate, the most expensive running back is a $6,300 Todd Gurley, who goes at San Francisco against the defense that's allowed the fewest points to running backs this season.
Yep.
So it's like we have one borderline stud.
Yep.
He does have 18 or more DraftKings points in 4 of his last 5 games. One borderline stud who's just above 6K who has a terrible matchup.
Yep.
So it's like it's an awesome 3-game slate, but it requires you to think a little bit more.
No, and I do agree with that. I guess where mine was coming from was that quarterback. Because Watson, Winston are the 2 most expensive guys. They're separated by $100. Mm-hmm. Watson, $7,000. Winston, $6,900. I mean, two extremely bad secondaries, but these are the two that are going to garner the most ownership here. Then when you have someone like Garoppolo, who's been as hot as he's been down the list there, Goff on the road against a 49ers secondary that has just been awful. Absolutely awful.
Yeah.
Allowing an average of 31 real points per game over the last 3 weeks. Like, they've just been absolutely decimated by injuries, and it's kind of really rearing its ugly head now. And then Josh Allen. Like, we know how we always try to avoid the Patriots' defense because of how good they've been, but Allen's one of those sneaky tournament guys. Yes, because the Patriots can't stop the run. Like, I think that's pretty known now that they have issues with the run. You're not going to be able to throw against him. We're not rostering Allen for his passing abilities. The legs is what's really getting us there. So at least for quarterback, and this is kind of what I was alluding to, this is where the tough decisions come. Because I think this position is going to make the biggest difference maker if you're cashing or not on the week.
So I'll say one thing. And I already wrote the Saturday targets article, which is up on the DK Playbook, so you can read through that and get some information and stuff. Bing. In cash, you're crazy. That it always stinks when you have these slates where it's one game after the other. This is kind of like the 3-game Thanksgiving slate, where the early game is the high projected total, the one that people are going to stack, and then you just watch yourself kind of fall all day and be like, am I going to stay in the money or not? But you're crazy not to stack that game in cash and then fill in some pieces from the later games. Like Watson or Winston is the cash quarterback. Probably Watson because he's at full strength. You just maybe Winston runs into a wall, given how depleted his top two receivers have come. So I think that makes Watson a little bit more safe.
What a weekend we have coming up in the NFL. 4 playoff spots. All 4 first-round buys are still up for grabs.
Ooh, tons of playoff implications here in Week 16. So let's put our panel to work. Good morning to DraftKings contributors Reed Fowler and Jeff Ulrich, and the fantasy girl Rosalie Michaels. Reed T. Fowler, our producer is telling us, our producer Tom Glennon,
call him out.
mentioning to us that you are not here because it is too cold. It is 16 degrees here in Boston, but where Jeff lives in Edmonton, in Canada, where it's always cold, it's 21 degrees. So, Jeff, you probably do a lot outside. It's always cold. It becomes cold here like once in a while with Reed, and he doesn't show up.
It's a balmy day where I live. That's all I know. I mean, I might go suntan later or something.
And I never go off of the temperature. I'm always going off of what it feels like. And I believe the feels like is like down in the single digits. And look at the pigmentation between me and Jeff. We both know where I come from. Like, I'm not used to this. I'm not used to this at all. I still never will be. So, Glennon.
And my color on my computer is just a little off.
Hey, Rosalie, how's it feel out west?
Yeah.
No kidding.
Hold on, I'm checking right now. Temperature. Oh, it's 39 degrees outside in Phoenix right now.
Oh.
So that's really cold for me. I'm with Reed, keep me inside. I've got a heater at my feet and a blanket on.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Bunch of wimps.
I really don't want to go outside, but we don't have to go outside right now because we're playing NFL high or low. So you tell us if these spreads for Week 16 are too high or too low. We start with Pittsburgh. They're a 3.5-point favorite when they visit the Jets. Too high or too low, Reed?
This one's interesting. I'm going to say it's too high, which is weird to say, which is not usually the case, right? 3.5. We mentioned it I think it was yesterday or earlier this week that Pittsburgh's offense, their touchdowns that they've accumulated in these games, it goes 1-1, 2-1-1 over the last 5 games. They just cannot score. And the Jets, when you look at their defense, they have been strong stopping the run, and that's really what Pittsburgh has to lean on. James Conner, these guys, that's really their only calling card to potentially winning this game and winning it by a lot. But the Jets, what they do is they don't allow a ton of fantasy DraftKings or fantasy points to opposing running backs, but even still, they are a strong run defense. I just really don't think this game can even hit the over or Pittsburgh can cover this, so I'm going to say it's too high.
Jeff, would you say it's too high?
Yeah, I look at this game and I really feel like I should probably just stay away, but there's just something drawing me that I want to bet it. I just don't like the Pittsburgh Steelers. I mean, I know they have a great defense, but their offense is so bad, and they just seem to run the exact same plays, like 5 plays throughout the entire game. Now, it's actually worked for them, this formula, in a couple spots, but I think this line is too high too. Pittsburgh on the road has not been as good, especially defensively. Most of their sacks coming in home games. New York Jets defense has been, hot or cold, but they've been good at stopping the run. And if they can bottle up James Conner here, I mean, they have a clear advantage at quarterback, which sounds weird to say because they usually don't give Sam Darnold much props, but I do feel like they're going to be able to move it a bit in the air here. Being at home is a big advantage. I think this line's a little too high. I'd take the Jets even at +3.
Rosalie, the guys seem to think this is too high. What about you?
I think it's just about right, which means, as Reed said, I'm probably not wanting to bet it because it is just about right. The Steelers are going to win this, but they're not going to win it by much. And it could be 3 points. It could be 4 points. So I think it's just right. Pittsburgh is one of the best in the league against the spread. They're 9-5 and 4-2 on the road. The problem that Pittsburgh said about Pittsburgh is, and the guys said it already, they're having a hard time scoring points, especially on the road, 15.5 points per game on the road. But if you look at their games this year, with the exception of the Browns, and despite the mess that they have on offense, they have only lost to teams that right now are seeded as the highest going into the playoffs, right? So I'm looking at all the injuries on the Jets D right now, and the Jets D has been pretty good, but not as good as the Pittsburgh D has been. So I think Pittsburgh wins this game. They are fighting for a playoff spot. They've got more at stake here than the Jets do. So I think they win, but I think they win by just like 3 points. So I'm not touching this game. I think the spread is right on.
All right, next game here, Jeff. Carolina at Indy. Panthers 6.5-point underdogs. What do you think?
I think this game is interesting. I think it's a little bit befuddling at the beginning because, I mean, obviously the Colts have some injuries. They're coming off a blow. But, I mean, the Panthers have been so bad, and now they're making a switch at quarterback to Will Grier, which is really interesting. And, I mean, it brings a different element into play here. The public seems to be siding with Carolina. I think this is just too many points. I'm siding with the Colts here, personally. I just feel like they're the better coached team. 6.5, I feel, is like a little bit too low even. I think T.Y. Hilton has said that he's going to be much more healthy for this game. If the Colts get a little bit of help back in the secondary too, because they were really undermanned in that game against the Saints, I feel like at home with a healthy T.Y. Hilton, Jacoby Brissett should bounce back. I feel like they can cover this. Carolina is banged up as well. They just have not been good. I do not trust a rookie quarterback going up the road. I take the Colts here.
Hey, Reed, Colts 5-1 against the spread in their past 6 home games against the NFC.
Yeah, I'm kind of on the opposite side of this. I don't really trust the Colts. I know going into that game with New Orleans, we thought they would put up something, but they really just didn't have anything going. And it might just be the injuries that are catching up to them. The skill players, right? T.Y. Hilton still looks banged up. Jacoby Brissett looks banged up. And Carolina, like Will Grier, I know we talked about, is he going to be an upgrade for some of these skill players? Probably not. It's probably going to be a similar disposition that they have with Kyle Allen, is that Grier potentially can come in there and give these guys a shot in the arm. Christian McCaffrey's going to get 25 to 30 touches total. DJ Moore kind of reminds me of what Allen Robinson was in Jacksonville, right? This really good receiver. We see what he's been able to do with bad quarterbacks now, and he's just absolutely destroying opposing defenses. You like DJ Moore. If you're Grier, you look at what Kyle Allen was doing, feeding it to DJ Moore. If you just stick to those things, Indy coming off of that short week, giving Indy all these points doesn't really give me a lot of confidence, so give me the Carolina.
Yeah, Rosalie, what do you think here? Second longest losing streak Carolina has right now in the league.
Yeah, it's the interesting thing to me with Grier coming in is we've seen a number of rookie QBs come in this year or new QBs come in this year and really blow up their first game in a good way. So that's interesting to me, but not enough to put me on Carolina here. Carolina's defense is still terrible. They're giving up 29.3 points to opposing offenses on the road. So I think Indianapolis, we saw them in the beginning of the season really putting up points. Jacoby Brissett doing a good job. They seem to have kind of tapered off as of late, but I think that they're going to end up, you can run the ball easily against this Carolina defense. They're going to get a lot of Marlon Mack in there and take control of the game. Also, the takeaway differential. Carolina was already 27th in the league in the takeaway differential, and with a rookie QB in there, that they're going to cough up the ball a little bit more. He's going to make those mistakes. So I like Indy here -6.5.
All right, guys, we got Jerry Donabedian of RotoWire joining the program now. So, Jerry, we'll go to you first on this one, making it a quad
Jerry.
box. Jerry.
Good morning.
Good morning. We're happy to have you here. So, Jacksonville heads to Atlanta as 7-point road underdogs. Too high or too low, in your opinion?
Too high. I think with all of these kind of games between two bad teams, I'll take the points there. I know Jacksonville's looked really bad recently, and Atlanta's kind of gone the other direction, like looking pretty good against San Francisco last week. But we've still seen Atlanta be very inconsistent, even as they've looked a little bit better in the second half of the season. Still a very beatable defense. I think we'll see a high-scoring game there. And we've seen Gardner Minshew always playing pretty well in the fourth quarter, whatever else he might do throughout the rest of the game. So I think if nothing else, we'll get like a backdoor cover here. I do expect that the Falcons will be able to win, but they've got a pretty banged up team too, and I think that could keep it a little closer than maybe we'd expect just looking at the recent performance.
Reed, too high for you too?
This one is really interesting. I want to know how many grievances with the over-under and how many grievances were filed against Jacksonville, Emerson and Jeff. And now that your boy Tom Coughlin is out in Jacksonville. But like this team, like we've seen Jacksonville's defense give up in a lot of spots. Atlanta, and they have won the games that they really shouldn't have won. And really their schedule's been pretty tough after the bye. They've won 4 of the last 6. I like Atlanta in this game because Jacksonville doesn't strike me as a team that can keep up with them.
Ooh, Jeff, we go to you now.
Well, who cares? Tom Coughlin was obviously the biggest problem in Jacksonville.
Yep.
I mean, he's gone. Everything will turn around now. But look, I'm riding one trend for this game, and that's the fact that Atlanta is 0-11 against the spread against out-of-conference teams over the last 3 years. 0-11. They do not do well against AFC opponents. Coming off a big win, there's got to be a little bit of a letdown here. Jacksonville's coming in with nothing to lose. 7 points seems too high to me. I'll take the points here with Jacksonville, 100%.
Rosalie, where are you going on this one?
Jeff's wrong. They do have something
Yes.
to lose. They have Dan Quinn to lose. Matt Ryan came out saying they are doing everything that they can to save Dan Quinn. He loves his coach. And so I think Atlanta's going to come out firing just like they did last week. So they don't have Calvin Ridley, and that's fine. We saw Julio Jones go off against a really good defense. What do you think they're going to do against this 29th ranked Jacksonville defense by DVOA? I think that Atlanta wins this and covers.
I meant Jacksonville had nothing to lose.
That's
got it.
wrong. That's just all we need to know.
Well, they all have nothing to lose. Just kidding. All right.
Whatever, man. The franchise is the worst.
Do we all really have anything to lose? No, I'm just kidding. Go ahead.
Guys, Packers and Vikings on Monday Night Football. Adam Schefter reporting Pro Bowl running back Dalvin Cook still battling a shoulder injury. Could be shut down here for the rest of the regular season, so he's unlikely to play. This spread here, Minnesota 5.5-point favorites at home. Reed, too high, too low?
Yeah, it just seems too high. Like, I know Green Bay is a team that we can't really figure out here. And look, they have a division that in their hands that they need to win out. We've heard Aaron Rodgers kind of speak to that. With the injuries to Minnesota, their defense is still really strong. This individual game, I think it's just too high. Give me Green Bay.
Jeffrey?
I'm going to take the Vikings here. It is a lot of points to give up to Aaron Rodgers, and this is not by any means my favorite bet of the week, but you know, the Vikings at home, they're just a different team inside that dome. I really just do not believe in the Packers defense and just the Packers overall as a team outside of Aaron Rodgers. Let's be honest. Aaron Rodgers isn't exactly like at the peak of his game right now. He's obviously aging a little bit. He still has those flashes, but this isn't the elite Aaron Rodgers of 5 years ago, at least in my opinion. He's still, a top 10 quarterback, but I like the Vikings at home here. I really think with Adam Thielen back, they're going to be able to do enough. The Packers don't have like the greatest pass rush in the world. Their secondary has been taken apart in small chunks here and there. And realistically, the Vikings have some pretty good backup running backs. Like Mike Boone can get this done against the weak rush defense of the Packers. I'm going to take the Vikings here. It's a lot of points. Like I said, not my favorite spot, especially betting against a good quarterback like Aaron Rodgers. But I'm still going to take the Vikings at home.
Rosalie, is this spread too high or too low?
Yeah, I agree with Jeff. It is. Vikings at home, 6-0. They're 4-2 against the spread at home, which is the best in the league, tied with Denver. And you know what? They do not give up a lot of points at home. I know it's the Packers, and this is probably my favorite game of the week. But 14.2 points per game, 2 opposing offenses at home. Meanwhile, they're scoring almost 28 at home. They're going to be able to get it done against Green Bay on the ground, like Jeff said. Yeah, even if Cook is out, which it looks like he's going to be, they've got Boone. Boone looks really good. Madison is unlikely as well. So they've got Boone. He looks really good. So I'm taking Minnesota and the points in a nail biter.
Mark the tape too, guys. This is the first time Rosalie and I have agreed all season. Big for me.
Come on, Jerry. Be on my side. Let's go.
Jerry?
No, see?
Oh.
He doesn't want to be on your side.
No, I can't. No, look, I like the Vikings here, and I think I was actually surprised to see that the spread was this big because you just don't see a spread this big against Aaron Rodgers very often, and the Vikings aren't quite what we think of as an elite team. But I'm just kind of on any opportunity to bet against the Packers. I think is a good opportunity. I think they're an overvalued, overrated team. You look at point differential, you look at DVOA, you look at literally anything besides one loss record. You look at the fact they've been blown out twice in the past month. They're just not a great team. They're very lucky to be where they are in terms of the one loss record. That said, they can still end up with the number 1 seed. So both teams do still have a lot to play for. I think, the Packers, if they lose this game, they're still in good shape to win the division. The Vikings lose this game and suddenly they're on the ropes potentially week 17. Just to get into the playoffs. So I think they've got a little more motivation here. And I don't worry too much about the running back situation. I do think Mike Boone is a pretty good player. He's looked great in preseason. He looked great last week. He's not Dalvin Cook, but really the loss of a running back is worth half a point on the spread. So it doesn't worry me too much.
All right, thanks, guys. We're talking hockey after we hear from Nick Eatman on what's ahead for the Cowboys.
Nick Eatman covers the Cowboys for the team's website. I'm Adam Kaufman. I just talk about them. And Nick, when we chat about Dallas, the boys win. It's science, really. I think it's as reliable as calling a coin toss.
Always reliable there, too. Sometimes you don't always hear what's being said. So
yeah,
this whole season has been about some. You think one thing and it's another. So, it wouldn't be this season if you didn't have something different. We always have weird things happen in these Cowboy games, and here's another one. You have to go to the league for a audio review of the coin toss.
Yeah, we've had that. We've had the black cat. We've had that weird Dak, shimmy dance through the, during warm-ups, whatever he was doing. It's been a busy season.
I mean, take it back a couple years ago when the guy pulls out an index card just to try to measure if it was really a first down or not.
Right.
Even a couple games ago, there were some rules that you just don't see a lot of, like on the 4th timeout, and it happened twice in the game. So I don't know what it is. Maybe other teams have the same weird stuff, but it just doesn't seem like it.
All right, well, let's hope that the winning pattern holds for your sake anyway, because clearly a huge game here in Week 16 between the Cowboys and Eagles. Dallas favored by 3 in Philadelphia. In all likelihood, and we've talked about this really all season, it's a playoff spot on the line because first place in the East is in the balance. So what do you expect?
Well, I expect the Eagles to do a lot of different things maybe that we haven't seen before. I mean, this is it for them. I mean, this is definitely – a do or die for the Eagles, and rightfully so for the Cowboys. I mean, they're not going to be in good shape if they lose. It's going to be hard to get in, but obviously for the Eagles, this is more of a desperation for them. So I would just imagine that they're going to pull out all the stops here, and I think the Cowboys have a lot of respect for what Doug Peterson has done there. So I definitely think that it's going to be a game where you'll see things from the Eagles side of the ball that you probably haven't seen a lot this year.
We'll get into some of the facets and inner workings of this game, health, all that. But what's your prediction? Just looking at it right now, what's your gut feeling tell you?
I really don't. I haven't come up with them yet until later in the week, so you're kind of putting me on the spot here. But
sure.
I just think the Cowboys are The only team they've really dominated this year, other than the Rams the other day, was the Eagles. And so I do think they're a lot better than the Eagles. They've been banged up all year, Philly has. And so I think the Cowboys are a better team. And, yes, it's on the road, but they've won 7 out of 9 here. I'll go with Dallas. I think the Cowboys will figure out a way. I just think the Eagles are so banged up, and I think the Cowboys are maybe about ready to turn the corner here. So I'll go Dallas.
Well, as you alluded to, the Cowboys took that Week 7 matchup by 27 at home. Very lopsided, very convincing. Anything to take from that win into this game? Because, again, a Dallas win secures the division.
Sure. I think that the biggest change from that game and with all the other ones is that they started so fast, and they were able to get a lot of turnovers. I think they got 3 to 4 turnovers in that game, and that's not something they've done all year consistently. So I think turnovers starting fast were the two things that really propelled the Cowboys there. So I would imagine, that would only be even bigger if they could do that on the road in Philadelphia. The longer games like that go and the Eagles, stay in it, it comes down to a coin toss there, I guess, obviously. And you never know how those are going to go. So
yeah.
I would think for the Cowboys, starting fast would be huge. But, like we've seen from Philly the last 2 weeks, they've scored, in the final minute of the game and in overtime to win. So you can't ever bury them.
There are some injury concerns right now. Dak Prescott front and center. He's dealing with an injured AC joint in his right shoulder. Now, I know Coach Jason Garrett said everything seems okay, but how serious is this issue?
Well, we've seen an index finger that kind of messes up his whole throwing motion. So I would imagine a sprained right shoulder for a right-handed quarterback, it's not going to be the best thing in the world for him. So we'll just have to wait and see how he throws. But I mean, he's a gamer. He's tough, and I think Zach Martin said it today. You're gonna have to kill him for him not to play this game. So he's playing, but how effective will he be? And is going to be the big question. And it might be one thing before kickoff. And how do you feel when you've got a little medicine in you and all that? But once you start taking some hits, what happens later in the game and how effective he'll be? So I think the jury's out on exactly how effective he's going to be with this injury.
We've got two hockey fanatics here to take a look at tonight's slate. DraftKings contributor Jeff Ulrich, we just saw that guy. And Awesemo.com's Chris Wassel. Looks like you're in the Christmas spirit in your house, bud.
Got the tree ready.
Oh, yeah.
That's very nice. So you don't do the colorful bulbs. It looks like it's the white lights on the tree?
Just white lights.
Yeah, that's classic. You got to go classic.
Oh, okay. Looks like I'm old school then.
Yeah.
Time for NHL opening face-off. You'll choose between the top two players at each position on tonight's 10-game slate. By the way, I didn't know you could decorate a Christmas tree an incorrect way until I was married.
Oh,
that's when I found out that I could totally
I'm sure you found
out
you could do a lot of things incorrectly once you got married.
It's true. I learn something new every day.
Yeah. All right. We start at center, though. Boston's Patrice Bergeron, who's 7,900 at home versus the Islanders, coming off double-digit fantasy points in 3 straight games. Or you could save $100 with Buffalo's Jack Eichel, who's 7,800 and taking on Philly. He's had 20-plus fantasy points in 4 straight. So what's the play here, Jeff?
I learned you can't just leave your dishes wherever you want, Emerson, when I got married. So
that's
that was
crazy.
my big lesson. As far as NHL goes here, I like Bergeron. I know the Islanders, maybe like on paper especially, not the greatest matchup, but I just like Boston's big line tonight. I don't think the Islanders have been playing well over the last month. They just got blown out by the Nashville Predators. And Bergeron, since he's come back, has picked up basically essentially right where he left off. Points in almost every game. His usage rate is just off the charts with Boston's first line, right? So I think going in, catching the Islanders in a bit of a soft spot here, all things considered. I know Eichel is kind of a bit more of a heavy shot producer, but really the matchup against Philly, not that great. Philly's a pretty good defensive team. Their goalie is also coming in really hot off a good game. I'll take Bergeron here. I think they're going to catch the Islanders a little off guard tonight. Chris,
do you like Bergeron or are you going with Eichel?
Look, as much as I love to go with Eichel just because of the high shot output, the problems are like what Jeff illustrated just before. Philly Philly allows less than 29 shots per game at home. I mean, they're one of the stingiest teams in the league, which still surprises me. I can't figure this Philly team out, even 35 games into the season, but they're somehow doing it. The Islanders, yes, they can slow down pace, but to be honest, over the past, I would say 6 to 8 games, they really haven't. They've kind of fallen where I thought they would at the start of the season. They've regressed heavily. They're allowing almost 34 shots per 60 now, which is among the bottom 5 teams in the league. And like just mentioned, Nashville lit them up for 8 goals the other night. 8.
Whoa.
So, yeah, they may bounce back a little bit, but this is a Boston first line that generates 40% of the goals for the entire team. And the Islanders do not do well traditionally in slowing them down. Matter of fact, in their last 3 meetings, I believe Bergeron has 4 points, and the line as a whole has a total of 14. So if you're going to go with this, you're going to go with Bergeron tonight.
Let's talk winger, shall we? Chris, do you like Vegas's Max Pacioretty for 7,300? Guy's averaging 16.5 fantasy points over his last 10. Or Winnipeg's Patrick Laine. He's had goals in 3 of his last 4, Jessie, and will cost you 7,200 this evening versus Chicago. Question mark?
Goals are king here, and look, what Robin Lehner expected in net for Chicago, you could almost pencil in 40 shots on goal for Winnipeg, because basically Lehner has faced about 39 shots per 60, which is the worst shot rate allowed in the entire NHL for a goalie, with a minimum of 10 appearances, of course. Now, Laine is hot or cold, and everybody knows this. This is a guy that once scored 14 goals in about 3 weeks and then went ice cold and scored 2 goals in about 3 months. So you take the hot wave, you run with it, and Chicago is literally one of the worst teams in allowing pace in the league. You have to go side with Laine tonight.
Do you have to, Jeff?
I mean, I like both these guys personally. I think Pacioretty is one of the more underrated, maybe one of the more underrated fantasy players. I mean, he's 3rd in shots on goal total in the league. I mean, he's a player who approaches the shot on goal bonus basically every night. So the floor you're working with Pacioretty is insane. And I agree, the matchup with Chicago is absolutely fantastic, and I love the Jets' first line tonight. I think Laine, like Chris said, he's very boom or bust, but when he booms, I mean, you want to be on the right side, because it's like either you have him or you don't on those nights. But Pacioretty's in a good spot too, and this is a player who's really picked it up. I mean, I mentioned his shot on goal volume, but his shooting percentage has improved over his last 10 games a lot. He's starting to put the puck in the net much more consistently. Vancouver's regressed defensively too. I mean, they're like a bottom 10 team in terms of shots allowed. So I think it's a good matchup for Pacioretty. I would actually lean Pacioretty. I think he's a little safer, but like realistically, this is a night where I'm targeting both of these guys. And like I said, I definitely want a piece of the Winnipeg first line.
All right, on the blue line, we got former teammates in Nashville, Preds D-man Roman Josi at 6,400, 14.8 fantasy points per game over his last 10 at Ottawa. Or you can take Montreal's Shea Weber for 6,200. He's averaging 16.3 fantasy points per game in his last 10. He's taken on Calgary. So who do you like out of these two, Jeff?
I mean, realistically, again, you could target both of these guys, but like, if you're forcing me to choose, it's Josi. I mean, I do not know why he's 6,400. A couple of slates ago, I wrote him up, and he was almost $1,000 more than this. And he absolutely went off against a weak team. But he gets another weak team tonight in the Senators, who again, they're 4th in goals against average. They're 4th worst goals against average in the league. I mean, this is a player who's, again, top 3 in defenseman in terms of shots on goal, and he's been hot lately too. He's been basically making that positive regression because he hadn't scored in a bunch of games, and now he's got 3 goals in his last 2. Just the shot on goal volume you get with Josi is too hard to pass up here in a weak matchup. I like Shea Weber too, but I kind of almost like Giordano more in that matchup with the Canadians on the other side. So give me Josi between these two too. He's far too cheap tonight.
Chris, where are you going?
My A option is definitely Roman Josi tonight, just for the price alone. I mean, I'm getting basically about say $425 a point DraftKings wise, which is, for defensemen this year at least, an elite level, and I'm not getting that anywhere else. Like Jeff said, I think it was 7,400 last week on that big slate for Josi, and he went off anyway. Didn't make a difference. Didn't phase me. Plugged them in, no problem. same thing tonight. Excellent matchup against a team that 5-on-5 is very poor typically in Ottawa, especially to top six lines and top pairing, obviously defenseman wise. Again, that Montreal problem is this. They're one of the league's worst in special teams. I actually would flip this around, and my B option would probably be, is this question of Josie or a guy like Mark Giordano, who, like Jeff said, is due not only for a positive regression, but in a big way against the Montreal team that is so porous defensively.
Guys, slate approved pick time. Who's your lock on tonight's entire 10-game slate? Jeffrey.
I'll go with Mark Scheifele. I mentioned the Winnipeg first line in a big spot. Obviously, you can definitely stack him with either one of his wingers, but I definitely want a piece of Scheifele tonight. Playing well, great matchup.
Who do you want a piece of tonight, Chris?
I go at what has ridden me true for even last night. I don't care if he played last night. Man's young. He's in his early 20s. I'm taking Nathan McKinnon naturally. I mean, the guy is a machine. I mean, it doesn't matter who he's playing. He could play with a stick figure. He's still going to probably get you a goal and an assist and 5 shots on goal. So, I mean, this is pretty easy. I mean, we can't go Nikita Kucherov tonight, or we can't go anybody from Tampa Bay because they're playing Dallas, which is like the black hole of offense. So it's definitely Nathan McKinnon at home against a Carolina team that can struggle on the road.
All right, thanks, guys. We'll be right back to get a college football bowl preview from Ben Rasa after we hear from Pat Mayo on T.Y. Hilton and the Colts.
We haven't done your rankings. I'll see if you have them out, but I would assume that the Colts just cash it in with T.Y. Hilton now that they're out of the playoffs.
I originally had thought that as well. I guess we'll switch to wide receivers here. I actually have T.Y. as in, only because they kept him out there in that Monday night game. Like, when it was well out of hand, like, this seems like a good spot to sit down injured T.Y. Nope, let's put him on the field. But if they're going to do that, why not just play him this week too?
Yeah, I still lean towards why even put him out there if you're talking about for next year. But I wasn't even thinking, to your point, why wasn't he even out there in the fourth quarter? So I don't know. Maybe we can surprise people with 3.5 late scores or whatever, how far behind they were. But it wouldn't shock me if he's out this week.
So, I think that he's going to end up playing. We'll see. I mean, again, people, you don't have to set your lineups right now. The rankings will update every single day. If he is declared out, I will readjust the rankings. But I currently have T.Y. Hilton is in. DJ Chark is in. He looks like he could return. Juju Smith-Schuster and Hunter Renfrow is reportedly going to return this week for the Raiders. Likely out. Chris Godwin. Scotty Miller has just been placed on injured reserve as the show is live, and that news just broke. I have Adam Humphries is out. Trey Quinn, Paul Richardson, the Sledgehammer, Taylor Gabriel. Mike Evans is going to be out, obviously. Nelson Aguilar and Demaryius Thomas. Josh Gordon is suspended, so he will not be playing. Number 1 in the wide receiver rankings. I'm going to give you a tier of guys here that are absolute must-plays. Then we'll get into the rest. Michael Thomas is number 1. DeAndre Hopkins is number 2. Devontae Adams, Julio Jones, Tyreek Hill, Devontae Parker, Keenan Allen. Those 7 guys, I think, are absolute must-starts. The rest, you can kind of debate all you want.
Would you call them most starts?
Oh yeah, they're Raheems. They're sideshow
Raheems. I think that's certainly, I see that they're all must starts. I probably would even go further down your ranks for absolutely must starts. I can't see how you get to week 16 and you get to some of these guys in your teens and you're not like, to kind of your point before about Dalvin Cook. Now, granted, Dalvin Cook's a top 5 running back, but what argument are you making to bench some of these guys?
I'm not. I mean, they're clearly at the top of the rankings. But like, if you wanted to play, like, if you were all gung ho for, like, I have DJ Moore way down in the rankings this week with the Will Grier situation. Not like sit territory, but well behind the spot. Like, I've had him ranked inside the top 10 for probably about 10 weeks now. Like, I don't have that sort of confidence in him. But if you wanted to say, hey, I'd rather play DJ Moore than Cortland Sutton, I'm not going to kill you over that. Like, I get it.
No, that one makes sense. I guess I'm kind of looking at 2 specifically and just not. I don't see how at this point AJ Brown or Robert Woods touches your bench. I think, and I even brought up my concern to David Blau before, and I don't see how deep are you at wide receiver if you're benching Kenny Golladay.
No, I mean, once you look at the rankings, if they're inside the top 20, they're must starts for me. But I think those 7 guys are on a clear tier above everyone else.
And that's fair. That's certainly fair. Yeah, if you're going to say they're on their own, like, special tier, then that's fine.
The college bowl season is intense.
Ooh.
It's long, and it's all over the DK Sportsbook. And here to help us navigate bets on opening weekend is Awesemo.com's Ben Rasa.
Good morning, Ben. How are you?
I'm doing all right. What's going on?
You know, man, we're just trying to survive another day here.
Yeah.
That's
I
what
hear
we're
that.
doing.
I hear that.
Yeah.
Well, we do have you here, yes, because we have 2 bowl games on Friday, including the Tropical Smoothie Cafe Frisco Bowl between Utah State and Kent State in Frisco, Texas. I had a smoothie yesterday. It was really good. The total is set at a whopping 67.5. Over or under, and why, Ben?
I'm going to go over. It's bowl season. These teams like to get going, get aggressive. I will say that Utah State's quarterback, he got in trouble, off-field incident. They say he's still going to play, but keep an eye on that. If Jordan Love sits, that would change things. But Kent State's defense, awful across the board. They can't stop the run. They can't stop the pass. But I think they'll be able to move the ball effectively as well. So I have a feeling this one is a shootout to get bowl season underway.
Well, Saturday is loaded with college contests, and one of the biggest spreads is in the R+L Carriers New Orleans Bowl, where Appalachian State is a 17-point favorite over UAB. Do you think they can cover that spread?
I do. That's a lot of points for a bowl game, but Appalachian State is a quality team. I know people probably still think of them as, the team that beat Michigan. That was a while ago at this point, but they're 12-1 on the year. They run the ball effectively. Zach Thomas, great QB. And UAB, they've had a fine year. They came back. They didn't even play football a couple years ago. But I have a feeling that, App State kind of just runs it down their throat here. Don't expect it to be competitive. And I would actually lay the 17, as crazy as that sounds.
All right, well, biggest total on the slate belongs to the Cheribundi Boca Raton Bowl between the now Lane Kiffinless FAU Owls and SMU. The number is set at 70. Ha! You brave enough to pound the over, Ben?
Oh, man, that's a lot.
It is.
Of course, can it go over? Yeah, I would take the under, though. And you mentioned it. I do think that Lane Kiffin being at Ole Miss and not here will affect it. You never know how teams are going to react in bowl games without their coach. We'll see what Memphis does down the road. But, these teams are going to put up points. At the same time, though, 70 is a lot. I think the game could be a little more methodical. And like I said, Lane Kiffin not being there is a wild card. I think SMU ultimately wins the game. They're pretty dynamic, but I'll lean under 70 and hope it doesn't get too out of control.
Tightest game on the slate is in Montgomery, Alabama, where Arkansas State is a 2.5-point favorite over Florida International. Who do you like in this game, Ben?
Well, I mean, this is just, it's amazing how many teams make bowls at this point. Like Arkansas State and FIU. I'm going to go with FIU. They beat Miami. They've got a quality quarterback in Morgan. I think they play in a little more competitive of a conference. Arkansas State in the Sun Belt, there's some okay teams. But to me, getting 2.5 with FIU in a virtual coin toss game, I do see a little value there. And like I said, they have stability at the quarterback position, which is my number one priority when looking at some of these average type teams.
Ben Rasa. Enjoy a thrilling weekend of college football. What are you gonna lay around, just watch football all weekend?
I'm gonna lay around it. If you can't tell, I kind of lost my voice here. I'm a little under the weather, so I'm gonna rest up and get refueled for a long bowl season ahead.
All right,
Perfect.
Well, you could have fooled me, man. You look great.
That's the way to do it.
You
Yeah.
look really good.
Clean up.
Yeah, you do.
It's amazing.
Like having you on. Love your face, man.
Take care.
We've got some NBA odds to discuss with Gary and Alex right after Panel B shares its very important thoughts and opinions about available futures bets on the DK Sportsbook.
You want to talk a little NFL futures?
Yeah, so I just think that DK Sportsbook does such a good job of offering plays at this stage of the season that you're not going to find anywhere. Like, I don't know where is offering these live, team futures. Obviously, everybody has Super Bowl and to win the conference, but like, you can bet to make the playoffs. Steelers plus 110, yes. Minus 134, no. The only other team with reasonable money is the Titans. Minus 134, yes. Plus 110, no. Like, nobody has those type of things. You can still bet division winners. But the player futures tab is the most intriguing to me. MVP, Offensive Rookie of the Year, Defensive Player of the Year, first overall pick, and rushing yards leader are all things that are still on the board. I know we've been talking a lot, and I've put some stuff on Twitter about the rushing yards leader because I have Nick Chubb plus 1,800 from before the season on that.
Humble brag.
Yeah, I'm an extremely sharp gambler. And if you look at those live odds, Nick Chubb is minus 305. He currently has a 79-yard lead on Derrick Henry. Derrick Henry's plus 250. So I've been looking at some potential hedging options. Do you hedge? Do you take Henry now? Do you take Henry week 17? So I'm in a pretty good spot there. But I just think the ability to even be able to bet on the rushing yards leader at this point of the season, like Derrick Henry, there's never a more capable guy of a 200-yard game than Derrick Henry. So if you want to take him plus 250 at this stage of the season, that's a good bet. Or you can look at it and say, Nick Chubb's got pretty much a game's worth, almost 80 yards lead on anybody. You lay the 305 now, and he's probably going to get it.
Right.
First overall pick, that takes some time to play out, but Joe Burrow's minus 250 there, Chase Young plus 250. This is something that I like a lot and took. Defensive Player of the Year is on the board. That's obviously something that you have the media voting on. So, Patriots haters, maybe they don't give the love to Stephon Gilmore, but a corner hasn't won Defensive Player of the Year since Charles Woodson in 2009. Stephon Gilmore is even odds. TJ Watt is next at plus 600. It's Stephon Gilmore's award to lose. And we kind of forget how dominant the Patriots defense was the first half of the season, and they've slipped up a little bit. But this is a full season award.
Yep.
Gilmore should win this award, and getting even money on that, I think, is a steal.
Well, the interesting thing, too, is that we've talked about this. When we last talked about this, TJ Watt was at plus 1,000.
Right.
He's dropped now to
made
plus
the appropriate
600.
Aaron Donald was plus 600. He's now plus 700. He's made the appropriate jump to plus 600. I think that TJ Watt is the guy if it's not Gilmore. Really dominant Pittsburgh defense, especially if they get into the playoffs with what they've had at quarterback this season. It kind of shows that the defense is what got them there, which makes Watt a good bet. But yeah, my money's on Gilmore.
Yeah, and like I said, these are one of those things too that you can get some big money on, and to get it this late in the game, it's pretty much mapped out who these are going to go to, but there's still money making opportunities here.
So you can say, I don't think it's going to be anybody but Gilmore and Watt. Donald is there for his name. Has he done anything to win it? No.
Not really.
Shaquille Barrett, he has a lot of sacks for that Tampa defense.
Yep.
We just said Tampa overs are 11-3. Is that the team that's going to win Defensive Player of the Year? If I went anywhere else, it would be Tre'Davious White for Buffalo at plus 1,600. I'd go even deeper. But, so let's say you want to put $100 on Gilmore to win $100. If you think Watt's the only other player that's going to get it, you can put, what am I looking at here? $15, $20 on TJ Watt to protect yourself.
Right.
And then you win, you profit $80 if Gilmore wins it, and you break even if Watt wins it, and kind of protect yourself a little bit there. There's ways to do this where unless there's a huge upset, you're going to guarantee your profit or breaking even.
Let's put a bow on this award-winning program, wrapping up the sweat with our NBA guys. DraftKings contributor Garion Thorne, RotoWire's Alex Barutha. Good to see both of you again.
Yeah, it's what are the odds? Looking at a few DK Sportsbook plays on tonight's 4-game slate. So Jazz at Hawks, Trae Young and Donovan Mitchell both have point totals set at 27.5 for this game. Who is most likely to go over, Alex?
I think Donovan Mitchell. And that's more so for me worrying about Trae Young a little bit here. Obviously, Trae Young can get hot from 3 at any point, which is why the over is always enticing. But he does get a lot of his shots at the rim. That was kind of a standout thing during his rookie year. And with Gobert, kind of holding down the fort in the paint, I just think Trae Young's going to have a really hard time around the rim this game. It's going to force him to take a lot of perimeter jumpers. So I'm going to lean with Mitchell. Partially because I would prefer him over Trae Young in this scenario, but also the Hawks aren't very good. Conley's out. I think a lot of things are just leaning more towards Donovan Mitchell in this 2-player prop.
Gary, and you leaning towards Donovan Mitchell?
I mean, we both liked Mitchell as a DFS play tonight, so obviously I do think he can score 28 points. Really, if Mitchell's going to be a viable DFS play, he kind of has to score 30 points. Doesn't exactly fill up the secondary categories, but I will say I have a little bit more confidence than Alex does in Trae Young. I think both these guys could easily go over this number. I just don't know who else is scoring for Atlanta right now. And really, when you look at the last 3 games for Young, he's taken 81 field goal attempts. 34 of those have been from beyond the arc. He's carrying about a 35% usage rate within that span. He's 4 or 5 3-pointers made away from hitting this prop. So I think both are good bets. I would still rather bet Mitchell though.
All right, Garion, Lakers at Bucks, an NBA Finals preview. Bucks are 5-point favorites in the premier matchup of the season so far. Can they cover?
I think so. Really, the Bucks have shown no reason why they wouldn't be favored in this game. Obviously there's the questions and concerns about Anthony Davis's health in this game. He's probably going to play, which is great news because as we saw in their last game, when you take him out of that Lakers lineup, the secondary scoring gets really iffy when LeBron's off the court. But, the Bucks are 7-2 ATS their past 9 games overall. They're 7-2 ATS their past 9 games as a favorite. And that's saying something because the spreads this team gets are gargantuan. So when they're covering that often and spreads are usually like 13.5, 15, 17 points, that says something about the quality of this team. And also when they get to play in Milwaukee, they lead the NBA in net rating at home. They're outscoring opponents by 14.1 points per 100 possessions. I just think until Milwaukee shows that there isn't a reason to trust them in these spots, I'm going to continue to trust them.
Alex, who covers in this game?
I actually think the Lakers cover here. The Bucks game against the Mavericks was a little concerning. I think they missed Eric Bledsoe. Now maybe, having one game under the belt without Eric Bledsoe, they'll be used to it a little bit, but he really provides a strong defensive front for the Bucks against point guards. He is great with the ball in his hands, driving the lane, which creates a lot of those 3-point opportunities that the Bucks thrive off of. And when he's not there, it's a lot harder, as we saw against the Mavericks, for the Bucks to drive into the lane and kick. When you have like George Hill and Dante DiVincenzo and Pat Connaughton trying to, run pick and rolls with Giannis and stuff like that. And I just think the size of the Lakers will be relatively overwhelming. Now the Bucks are a big team, but it's tough. I was a little surprised that the Bucks were 5-point favorites, and I know they've been great against the spread. I watch almost every Bucks game, but I don't know. I think the Lakers are maybe the better team right now.
Well, Alex, in a not-so-premier matchup, the Nets at Spurs, Spencer Dinwiddie has been phenomenal filling in for Kyrie. His point total for today's game is set at 24.5, highest in this game. Can he go over it?
I think so. He had 31 in his last game, though that was against the Pelicans. But before that, he had 24 points exactly in his prior 4 games. 2 of those were against Toronto and Philly, which are obviously great teams. Over the past 2 games, Dinwiddie's averaging 23.5 field goal attempts. I think he is just out to prove that he is like the number 1 option on this team without Kyrie there. The Nets are making a big statement in that respect. And the Spurs are really just, they're falling apart right now. I mean, I think the main argument for the under would be that maybe they put DeJounte Murray on Dinwiddie the whole game. That kind of shuts him down. But right now, I would bank on Dinwiddie hitting the over.
Garion, would you bank on it?
No, I don't really feel great about this one. Like Alex said, he went through this very strange stretch of scoring exactly 24 points in 4 straight games. That wouldn't cover, though. I mean, he's only covered this one of his last 7 games, and that one game was against one of the worst defensive teams in the league, and it went to overtime to help him accomplish that feat. So I would probably lean towards the under here. And look, it could just be sort of small sample size variance. We kind of see teams go through ebbs and flows, specifically on the defensive end, sort of as opponents' shots drop or miss. It's really about high-level variance sometimes. But over their last 5 games, the Spurs have the 6th best defensive rating in the NBA. Opponents have the 3rd lowest field goal percentage against. And like Alex mentioned, I do think they have an elite defensive option, an individual defensive option in DeJounte Murray against Spencer Dinwiddie. So I'd lean the under here.
Okay, under 90 seconds to go, guys, so need these questions to be a little quicker. Rockets at Clippers, over or under the game total of 233.5. Garion.
I'll take the over. Like I said, these are 2 of the highest-paced teams in the NBA. They're 2 of the better shooting teams in the NBA. I think we get there.
Alex, do we get there?
I like the under here. Rockets 9-4 to the under in road games. Clippers 9-5 under at home games. Clippers are really strong defensively. I think they can get it done.
45 seconds, slate approved pick time. Who's it going to be, Alex?
I'm going with Lamarcus Aldridge against the Nets. I highlighted before the Nets love to give up mid-range jumpers, and Lamarcus Aldridge loves to take them.
Garion, slate approved.
I'm going to go with Lou Williams. Pat Bev's going to foul out.
Farewell, my Christmas chinchillas. We're now 5 days and 13 hours away from Christmas Day.
Santa!
What's funny is that's like so natural for you. Like it's just normal for you to do that.
Yeah. I mean, Santa, I know.
Hey, good to have you back.
All right,
your
yeah.
Your tan looks great.
See you tomorrow.